Hey, everybody, this is Jeremiah Craig for another edition of Ask the Bootmaker. Today, Jes Marquez joins me from New Mexico. How's it going, Jes? Thanks for joining me here on this edition of Ask the Bootmaker.
Hi, Jeremiah. Yeah, I really appreciate you asking and having me on to just spill my guts on the boot topic and with some other interested people in boots. So
yes, that's what I'm talking about. Do you want to get us started with how you got into custom boot making? Just sort of kick us off in a really general, origin story.
Well, I know I thought about this. I was like, I'll just leave out the sagas, the backstories, the lead up to what happened. I came across a book. I can give you the shorter version. I love this little book.
That's a classic.
It's a classic in the boot world. And I came across it. My mother-in-law had a copy of it. And I just picked it up and I started looking at it. I mean, literally that was the magic moment for me. Because I thought, well, one day when I get done with my disgruntled aspects of other, self-employment and just, the entrepreneurial stuff, designing, selling stuff. And I thought, well, one day I'll get to the boot thing. My mother-in-law is really stylish, and she was kind of like, she's the kind of person that says like, you should have, do it yesterday. Like, you're like, gee, I think I want to make cowboy boots, and, well, get on it. Right. Like the eyebrow, I call it the eyebrow of intrigue. How are your projects going? The eyebrow of intrigue. And I think it was one of the few times in my life I actually I didn't have to cold call it as much as I've done in my life. She actually did know, you always hear these stories. Somebody knew somebody knew. And so she knew, she was always shoes. And so I just went and talked to him about my mentor, he became my mentor, about coming in and starting. And like I say, it's Mexicano boots and kind of a Spanglish learning process, like my half Spanish and English. And, it was a real interesting way of learning boots in a very, osmosis kind of way in a little shop. And I just think it was such a great experience. It was hands-on. It was away from the computer. It was, it was really satisfying to see the process. So we just started me off with, well, you're going to have to be able to sew. And I had never sewn. And so that's kind of and then persistence has brought me to this point.
How long ago was that when you started?
Like almost 5 years this next month. Yeah. Like I just walked in and, when he said, yeah, we sorted out an arrangement, I just started going in and sewing like on one of his old singers. And, I remember turning the motor on and it just, it just flew, and I'm like, okay, and have a good learning attitude. There's something about being humble about learning a new craft or anything in life that someone's like, I'm the expert or whatever. And I really appreciate the style of learning from him because it was real. It was very, just gentle. It wasn't too like, you're going to have to get better at that. It was like in time, it'll happen, because they definitely take a lot of practice for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. It sounds like he might, or you might not have been his first apprentice if he was able to approach it with such patience.
I think he's a patient person. And I think I've heard, just around the grapevine of boots, that boot makers, that there is occasionally somebody that does want to learn, but then they start diving into the boot making process. Because if you look at a cowboy boot, you're like, that kid's got to be pretty simple. A couple pieces of leather, a leather sole, kind of sewn together. It's got to be relatively basic. And it isn't. And I think there was a time there was someone that informally tried to, do it and then never showed up again. I've heard that story. So I've persisted. I guess that's one of the words that sticks with the boot thing is persistence. And because it's really satisfying when it does finally come out, it's very magical, I think. So that's a little bit of stepping into the shop. I really, truly enjoyed that experience a lot. It was something totally different. It humbled me. It also just showed me that sometimes when you think you've hit this wall with like, I think cold calling or selling to people and they're not really expecting it. And it's just like a real lackadaisical response sometimes, like, well, and you're like, well, should I just check back with you in the spring or the fall or next week? I mean, you call sometimes and people are just never like, it's always the person you need to talk to is like, just not in that random Wednesday or whatever emergency had occurred. And I think sometimes I really got frustrated at a certain point. And so this was like, whoa, this is a whole new world. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to come into this shop, and just have this time to start getting good at it. And then he started setting me up with the machines as I got, farther into it. So I guess that's a good start, maybe.
Yeah, that's great. It's really cool that you were able to have somebody nearby that would give you that attention and help you with this new trade for you. And you mentioned that, you're looking at the boots and you're like, how hard can that be? And then you actually start it and it is extremely hard. What was the moment where you're like, wow, this specific part is a lot harder to make than I thought it was going to be?
I thought at first lasting was a challenge only because there's so much symmetry, because that's really where it's going to start taking the shape. I would say the sole, no, I see this in Spanish because I'm always thinking plantas. Plantas is the insole, and that prep work. And that's something nobody sees at the end of a boot. And I think at the beginning, he was a little afraid of me using the knives, like some super sharp knives, or the cuchillas. Yeah. And I mean, so it was like, eventually I actually got to use one of the knives he had made, and I was like, okay, I've reached a point where he trusts me not to stab myself. But I think the sole prep, because when you prep the insole, you have to, it leads into how well the welt process goes. And if you do that part correctly, then the welt is easier to do when you're doing these hand-tied welts. And so I realized that, and I start to now be able to think about those parts as I'm building the next part. Because you can't really I always say it's not like, just flinging paint around like Jackson Pollock style or something. I mean, you really have to be concentrated on what you're building, I mean, it's not surgery, but it is specific. And so each part, if you do it correctly, then it leads to the next part going a little better. And when I have felt like it wasn't going well, I mean, there's been some audible things I've said and cried. And I think even he said at one point, he was like, oh yeah, I wanted to quit at one time, because it's a hard thing to do, but you're like, it's so cool when it's done. I got to stick with it. And I would say my husband has also been like, no, you just get out there on the stage, just keep on, you got to do this because you're doing good. And so I'm like, all right, thank you for those supportive people. Right. I mean, I think a lot of times, even if you say you're self-employed, there's still these people that have helped you make it happen. Even when you're like, I did it all myself. Right. But there are people that facilitate these things. And it's just like, I would say nothing normal has ever worked for me, but weird things work for me. And that's kind of what the greatest thing is about the boots to me, is it's like, oh, okay. Because I never really would notice for doing anything like my other stuff, because it was my paper goods. It looks like it's some company. And it's, probably 4 or 5 people do that. It wasn't as personalized. Like boots are very personal. So you end up connecting with people on a one-to-one level. So that's true. Yeah.
And you have like a really creative background too. You got your hands in a whole bunch of different things. You are working and have been trained in a bunch of different creative endeavors. Like you went to school for photography and communications, correct? You're also an author. Now, is this something that sort of led you to this creative field of boot making as sort of a next step? Or have you always sort of dabbled in different creative endeavors and now boot making is like the calling that you haven't been able to find in these other creative endeavors?
I was always, I think I said this, I was like the homeschooled adolescent too, like I was always thinking like the career endeavors, like really early on, I was, just and they probably were like cartooning or architecture and design. And I thought, well, I always like, nonprofit stuff. I liked animals. I have done as the stationery because it was a low barrier to entry to just get started with something. And man, talk about a cutthroat industry. If anybody ever tells me the cowboy boot world is like, whoa, get out while you can, I'm going to be like, no, I know the stationery world, like the sales reps, this whole like underbelly of cute Hallmark stuff. And I'm just like, let me tell you some stories on another topic later. But so yeah, I always wanted to combine these ideas of just business and nonprofit and creative stuff. But I always felt it was like not a great thing to be that creative. And I realized it, like in homeschool pottery class, making a pot that didn't have a bottom on it, and the lady was real like, I can't believe Jess didn't put a bottom on the pot or whatever. And it was just like, oh, this creative thing is going to kill me. And then the boots happened and I was like, okay, maybe I can do this, So, I mean, just, I really do enjoy what happens after it's done. And some of the parts I'm like, all right, I can get there maybe, So that's kind of what I keep doing. Persistence,
That's how anything gets done, is just keep at it. I love it. And you also have written a book, and I want to touch on this really quick before we like really dive into more Bootmaker stuff. Did you write the book before you started bootmaking 5 years ago, or like during the same time? And what are the similarities between these two creative art forms, authoring a book and making cowboy boots, if there's any similarities at all?
I like that question a lot. I'll show this. I mean, I did the cover to this one. This I actually did kind of during the time of the boot process as well. And I liked doing this book, Utilities Nearby, because it was kind of a part of stepping away from just like this hardcore stationary thing. And I was also working on the 2 kids books about animals. And so when I was doing that, I also was going to the shop and working on that as well. So I would say the biggest similarity to boots and to writing is never be boring. Never be boring. And I think also that like writing is like the character, even if it's nonfiction. I love nonfiction, just great, funny, kind of poignant, quirky nonfiction. And I think that's kind of how I write. But the boots too. Never be boring, and you got somebody's attention. So otherwise, like I wasn't like, hey, I'm a well-known author or anything, it's just you start somewhere. And I thought, okay, regionally, this is a fun one. And I had it in me, these essays I wanted to get out. Like people say that I had it in, I just had to get it. I had to write it. I just had to write crazy. And I'm a weird person out in the woods writing my books. So I'm so lucky. And it kind of happened out of that. And so I would say those are 2 really similar things. I also think that in publishing too, there's the bleed lines when you actually physically lay a book out. I have been a fan of doing things yourself rather than trying, at a certain point, like, well, I'm just not going to ask anybody else for help or anything else. I'll just figure it out on my own. And I've done that. And, at the end of the day, I think that I really do love writing. And I also like boots as like the visual storytelling. I think it's like, that's my writing without words, is to make a boot, that's got some cool thing in it. I like that part of it, a lot. So that probably keeps me getting through the hard parts, to stick with it, is like, I like this look, but I don't want to just do look. I want to get it, correct, that it fits, that it's not just bling, bling. Hey, it's pretty. I want it to be a well-fitting boot too, in time. But you get there by doing it again, right?
Yeah. So let me ask you this, since boring, quote unquote, is so subjective, right? Somebody might find like somebody is bored to death over any program on NPR when somebody else just thinks it's the best production in the world, right? So how do you decide what is boring? And how do you think about that when perceived by others?
Well, I guess I could say, like, as a joke, if my husband's like, I've heard this story. And I'm like, yeah, I think you don't remember this one. I noticed this like on YouTube too, how like there's always a thumbs down. like, I don't care what subject matter you're talking about in the universe. There's always a thumbs down. There's some, but you got to focus on the thumbs ups or the comments that were positive sometimes, So I think that, sometimes these things are more like almost intuitive, that you're just like, I think like the Utilities Nearby book, I knew people were interested in New Mexico. I had done this big rant on Craigslist for a long time that was really funny. I ended up getting a pen pal out of it. A couple just these people wrote me letters, and it was really kind of community driven in the same way you're doing a live stream. It was great to get these stories that related to my post. Thank you for the information. I'll never choose off the grid living like this. Thank you for making me aware of the mistakes I could make. And there was like this immediate feedback, because I think sometimes you don't get that feedback. Who knows, like, if it's going well, if you don't get the thumbs down or the thumbs up or some sort of digital reaction, but to get some people to write, I knew I was engaging people. With the boots, I feel like I'm sort of I'm making something really vibrant and stuff. And then it's like, okay, I'm going to post it now, And I think when they get done, I am like, I look at them for a day or something. And I'm like, okay, not just that I stare at them all day, but just to go, okay, I'm ready to share that. I can share that. And it's kind of neat. I mean, that's life too. I mean, connection is just you might be told, you might be heckled, like if you're going to do stand-up comedy or an open mic. And I guess I would go into reading people. Well, did I answer the question?
Yeah, that's great.
Still engaged, right?
Yeah, that's the whole thing with when you're saying YouTube. I look at the same thing. Like, I'll make a video and it's just about persistence. Did it hit right? Did it not? Like, what is the response? And then change that for the next time. So it's all about trial and error. I feel like that's half of how I figure out what's boring and what's not too.
Right. And I just knew, like, you'd hit on like these ideas about like New Mexico. I knew I had hit that something I knew about, as you say, as it's always said, write what and so it's like, that's what I do. I think with the boots is just, this is what I know. And this is what I can take all these moments of life and put them together and go, oh, that'll be a great boot. If that makes sense at all.
Yeah, totally. And like we were talking about, you're in New Mexico. Your book is about living in New Mexico. Why did you choose New Mexico to set up your shop?
So let's see, default, I was already here. And I mean, I moved here as a kid when I was 11. And pretty much I had these years in my life where I thought, okay, if I want to like mingle and really network effectively, all these ideas, I thought, well, I'll have to leave. And I always was interested in like expat stuff or go live some other country, which I did. And I left a couple times, short spans of the Odyssey, try to have like a normal life somewhere else. Because I always think we are kind of like, it's different, here than the US is so diverse anyways. Mm-hmm. But I was already here. I mean, my husband, and a lot of good things did happen to me in New Mexico when I reflect back on it. Like, my husband was here. We were already good friends, and, just some family here and just that I really do love the state and I don't really feel at home anywhere else. And I mean, I did live in South Africa. Like, that's another separate saga storyline. That was a really great experience. I turned in the keys to my pet sitting job that I had. It was really great, and golden handcuffs, and tried to make that happen. That's a long story, but I think at the end of the day, I was like, I always thought I wanted to live by the ocean too, but now I'm just like, I love the food here. I mean, everybody will say that. You love the red chili, the green chili. I really care about this state too. And I feel like rather than leaving it, that it's better to stick around and I just don't have a reason to leave at this point. And now that we'll be working on this place for a long, long time, I'm really happy to just be like here. And I think in a way it'd be like, okay, well, come see me now and here instead of me going out into the world. I don't ever have to leave this place again. I just know I have everything that I ever needed to churn out at this point here. Like, I feel like I've seen a lot of the country and other places too. And so I think that kind of, I miss New Mexico. And, Yeah, it is an interesting place. It is. It has a lot of the fabled westerny kind of draw to it. And then sometimes people are like, oh, nothing works here. You know, it was the Lou Wallace quote. I put this in the book. Everybody says it. You know, it's like, what works in other places is kind of a paraphrase, fails to work in Mexico. And it's kind of a joke, but it's kind of true. And it's, you know, so it's like, to me, this feels like the place that's just most me, the place I've been the longest. And I don't see a reason to leave. I love it, really. I mean, I'll do a yachting life in the next life. You know, maybe I'll be a boating. You know, I'll make boots, and that was really part of this corridor. You know, this you were talking about Leon and the boot factories. It really is like to Juarez and El Paso and Albuquerque and here and you know in Texas, and it's like it was a neat way to re-engage with this state to do the boot making thing. So I kind of feel like, you know, I'll just age it out here. You know, that's what I'm going to do, I think. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think everybody should go explore different states, different countries, and then decide, you know, what they want to do from there. It really opens up a level of perspective that I feel is really necessary in the world right now, because everybody likes to get in their own little bubbles and then stay there. But it really is inspiring to get out in the world. And then if you want to come back, New Mexico is going to be there. Texas is going to be there. New York is there for me. You know, it's all, it's not like any of these stuff is going to go anywhere. So I really respect that you did that.
Thank you. I really enjoyed that. I have always enjoyed meeting people like from a different, where have you lived, or people that just live in, you know, towns you drive through or small places, or, well, what is it like to live here? You know, I like that a lot. And so I think that's just one of the greatest ways to communicate with people is just geographically, like, what is it like in your part of the world? It's just fun to hear about. And you get good stories that way from people. And it's also nice when people tell you, well, these are the drawbacks, you know, and you can always find that on YouTube too. Like, these are the drawbacks of living in such and such. Don't ever move here, you know? Right. So, and then somebody else is like, I can't believe you trashed that place. I love it. I was born there. You know, it's just, you never know. I mean, it's just like the niches of the world of interests and subjects. It's like, geography is like that. There's going to be people that are like, I can't wait to go back to, you know, Europe. And I mean, I used to think I wanted to go live in like Western Australia, like another really remote place, but with the ocean, but kind of desert. You know, I was like, this perfect place must exist, you know, and that's not actually true. You know, I mean, that was 16-year-old me. I think every place has a plus and a minus, I guess. You know, we do have our minuses here too. I mean, but I always joke about how, you know, real estate agents talk about like, you know, real estate around here. I mean, it's like copywriting. It's just like so funny. And that's why that book I put together was kind of about that stuff too. So, but it kind of goes with the boots, you know, New Mexico does go with the boots. I mean, it was always
without a doubt.
The Santa Fe thing was like, okay, you know, this Western kind of certain Santa Fe look. And to me, like cowboy boots are kind of like, all right, that's the Santa Fe I remember. I like it like this, you know? So that's one more thing I like about boots too. Yeah, I think they work here, you know?
Oh, without a doubt, for sure. It's prime territory for boots. And you are fixing up the Adobe house right now, right? And you are preparing a bootmaking shop inside the house. What do you have to think about when you are, I guess, renovating a building that you're going to be using to make boots in?
Well, I would say one of the things was this place had electricity too. You know, I mean,
that's important.
You know, it had the water and stuff. It has you know, the wiring through the old Adobe walls. It had, you know, some of that stuff. And I mean, the reality is you don't really need like a super fancy place to do boots. And I mean, I know some people have these small shops. And it's always nice to have a table where you can spread out a bunch of leather, you know, a big like warehouse space. But it was like, okay, but I mean, my mentor's shop was never like a super big shop, or if you're, you know, New York, everything's small or tight spaces, like the tiny house movement or something. So, you know, I think just basically having a quiet place to work that I don't have to leave again. And that's mine. And, it doesn't have to, it's not fancy. It's like, but in time, I appreciate being able to, work on it. And so I guess, it's just a room with electricity because you got to plug in the Landis. And it's just like, we've been doing a lot of manual labor stuff, troweling and, adobe wall stuff, and then like lime mortar and troweling. And, and so it's like, you feel like, moving that Landis this week, so, because it weighs like 600 pounds. And so that'll come next week, actually. We're going to go get that finally. So I'll be like one step closer being able to do everything here. So I never really thought of it really as a shop. I'm just kind of like, I have these different stations around here where, my she wagon for the Inlay and that last out there. And then I got these two machines here, and I've got a boot jack in the Juan Wayne room that's not done yet. And just stuff like that. In time, it'll get there. But yeah, I mean, throughout the whole pandemic, I have been here ensconced in a lot of this stuff, and probably got weirder socially, I guess.
Haven't we all?
I think so.
All right. I want to touch on some of the questions that have come through on the live chat real quick, like a short little lightning round, and then we can get back to some of our questions. Like I got a bunch on Inlay since you just talked about that, but let's hit up the live chat real quick.
Okay.
And I got a couple of questions here. One's from Neil McLaren over in Scotland, and he asks, he can sew well enough to make quilts and other stuff. Is the sewing process similar on boots?
Hey, I got a Scottish middle name. Northern Scotland, Mackay. So I would say the industrial sewing is like, I use the Singer 3115. I really like the vintage machines. I know there's some modern ones. I have been in a quilt shop and I saw these really fancy quilting machines. I don't know how thick a quilting one that's made, a sewing machine made for quilting, I don't know how thick they can do. The leather is the difference for when you say industrial, what you usually mean is it can really pop through some thicker leather. But I do think, you could do a leather quilt and that would be great. But the machines that I know the best are like the old Singers, the Singer 3115, because it's just a hallmark classic for, it's good for stitching the boot tops or stitching vamps on. And I think if you were doing like a thicker fabric for quilting, I think that would work pretty good. Does that kind of answer? I just don't know how thin the fabric is. I know what quilting is, and I know it's a lot thinner. So also, I guess the only other thing is I use the rolling foot on the 3115 instead of the walking foot. That would probably be the only other thing for stitching thicker stuff. But if you did a leather quilt, the 3115, or I think you could make one on that. That'd be cool, I think.
Nice. I think that was a great answer. Thank you. Neil also asks, when we were discussing all your different creative endeavors of the past, he asks, do you see yourself as a boot maker or an artist who also makes boots?
I would like to be, I guess for like the badge, it would probably be the boot maker that just throws in a whole bunch of stuff. But because I think I was always like afraid of doing artistic stuff too much. But then the other part of it is like, I'm learning again every time I go through the process. And to me, I might as well do what I can do. And if I can do inlay, I might as well just do it. And it gives me just such a great motivation to continue with the boots. So they kind of do go together eventually, hopefully I could be a master at some point, finessing all the little aspects, making sure everything, the fit, just the basic boot itself, it works and it's really cool. That's it's a problem.
And it seems like people who have been doing it for decades still have little things to finesse here and there,
And I hear that.
It might be tough.
Yeah, because there's always a mistake. There's always like, oh, I don't want to show that. I want to mess that part up a little bit, And I know, and I've seen all the the master bootmakers say the same thing as you said. So,
without a doubt, got another question here from Bloody Soup 74. Do you teach, or would you consider making a school for others to make their own business like you've gone on your entrepreneurial endeavor, or maybe to help to create boots in the future?
I think that's really important. One of the things about boot making is that it is so necessary to have that apprentice experience. And so I believe in you gotta you pass it on. And I would like to do that as I get, at certain point down the line. I would really like to share it, because I mean, it's a craft you're either gonna want to stick with it and really do it or not. And just to get exposure through any kind of apprenticeship, I would be interested in doing that. But I mean, and then the other part, I guess, is, this is totally unrelated to boots, but it's about helping people with what you do know. And everybody knows something that they can share, like ISBN numbers for books, just how you lay out a book cover, how not to get, some of these vanity publishers that really take advantage of people. What's the other one? Oh, barcodes. The barcodes industry is incredibly it's all this whole world of buying barcodes and owning it and this fee you pay. There's little things like that I think I taught myself a lot. That's about, I guess, the publishing industry, or barcoding a product and selling it to some extent. That's not as interesting as boot making maybe, but it's part of selling a book. It's part of selling a product. A lot of times people are like, well, you got a number system, a barcode system. So that's why I number my boots. I numbered all my lines, the thing I've done in the past. So I would be really happy. I like doing that. I do appreciate, I do want to step out and help other people too, for sure. I do.
Yeah, that would be sweet. I think that's always a respectable way to go, for sure.
Yeah.
Got another question here from 47 Solar. What do you think about Tecovas and their broad marketing approach and appeal? Is it good for boots in general, or do you have a different opinion on the topic?
I like the question. I think it's important because I like business, I think, to some extent, but I like a certain creative business too. But some principles still apply. I think branding, I'm like the one woman shop, the one man kind of option of boot making. The traditional bootmaker is a totally different brand and approach than, doing something where you've got a whole factory of people, getting them shipped, making them, lasting them. I think what I do notice is when I look at a factory made boot, I can tell, and I'm sure they're great boots too. I'm definitely familiar with, some of the ways that you can, go through the process, certain prep work that can be done to make it quicker. I have never actually touched a Tecova boot yet. I have seen their ads though, and heard a little bit about them, but, and I can see some of the ways that you have to expedite your process a little bit, as opposed to just sitting here, like I'm putting confetti in this other boot and rhinestones, one at a time. And or putting the piñata together, that's time where you're not just, you stamp it out. It's whether if they're, nice welted boots though, you can, as long as your boot is welted, you can usually get them, resold if they are that. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's just it's a different market price point. And it's, I've always been interested in man, how do you ascend to the zenith of marketing? And now I'm just going to be low key about it. So it's more hidden, and maybe it's more mystique about it. But I will say this, it's very challenging to be one person or two people creating a product, getting it ready, and then also pitching people or marketing people. I think that sometimes, I had a kind of discussion with a friend about this once, and she was like, well, they got distribution in 1,500 stores. So what? And it's really, that takes a lot of time. So it's a scaled up business versus the one person kind of boot making thing. And I like boot making because I can do it as just one person, or with my husband, also super supportive of keep going. But, the one or two person business versus a bigger business, it's different approaches, I guess.
Without a doubt. That's a great answer. Thank you for that. Thank you for the question, 47 Solar. One more lightning round question, and we'll get back to some of the other stuff that I have planned out. Jim Collins asks, have you done any patchwork boots yet?
I actually just did a repair for a neighbor. And you know what? It was the first time I've ever repaired something for somebody else. Actually, I did it twice now. And I was like, yes, I can do that. You know, because there's something about working on your own project and you know, like, okay, it's going to come out, you know, it's going to be well received. But there is something, I kind of think of it as akin to giving someone a haircut. Like, for me, making the boot is like, hopefully it all works out at the end. But if you're cutting somebody's hair, you're right in front of them, you know, like, oh, hopefully that they're going to like the haircut I'm giving them. And I just couldn't do that. I got to have like the privacy away to get it, like, hopefully it comes out. Okay, now I'm ready to show you. Whereas you can't do that with a haircut. So yeah, I was actually really excited because that long arm singer that I'm sitting at right now, I was able to, I mean, my neighbor's just like, hey, can you? And I was like, yes, I can. And it was, thankfully it was black with black. And it's like, all right. And I was like, of course I can do this. You know, that's like pretty basic. But when you're touching somebody else's product, their shoes and stuff, I mean, that kind of ups it for me a little bit. It's easy to make my own stuff, but it's a little scary. I don't want to screw up somebody else's stuff too, you know, right? That's different. Yeah. That's special. They dropped it off with you. You know, they've been trusted to do a good job. So
that's cool. I've never thought about it that way, but I completely understand what you're talking about. I've never heard bootmaking being compared to, you know, getting a haircut, but I love it. I absolutely think that this is why I love doing these interviews. That's great. Now, you are really known, at least I know you for a lot of inlay work. You do it a lot on pretty much all of your boots that I've seen on Instagram and stuff. What draws you to making boots with inlay, and what do you like most about it?
Well, it's the storytelling, it's fashion, and the irony for me is I've always been, you know, pretty like, you know, hiking clothes, camping, you know, not really super into the fashion world, because I think I always saw it as like, well, that's kind of superfluous. But then I started thinking about it as it really is an expression of the human spirit to be fashionable. There is like an energy in fashion throughout every point in history. And there was a lady that did some wonderful YouTube videos on like a history of fashion. And it was like, so many times it would be like, and we returned to the tunic. And we, you know, it was like, I mean, the human body can only don so much different shapes. There is a limitation to what we can do. What I like about the cowboy boots is I think of them as like a haiku where the form is the same, but the infinite possibility is there. And so for me, it's like, I made this list of 100 boots, or roughly, the orders changes. Oh, that's the next one. Or, you know, somebody will come in like with a request, like Rosie the Riveter, that was a request. Actually, Madonna was a request too. And I was like, yes, I can do that. You know, and I'll just try to hack that out and spend the time to get there. But I mean, I think you can only be a rock star and wear stuff. But I thought about this when I wear these boots, there's definitely a different vibe, you know, in the room. Like, it's like, it could be from who do you think you are wearing that, unless you're a rock star. And then you can wear like, well, you're a rock star, you can wear that. I have this jacket from my mother-in-law that's like a rock starry looking jacket. And I'm like, you know, can you picture me in the produce department at the store, like wearing this coat, you know, like it draws attention. And I think that's what's so fun about boots is I really want to make boots that surprise people that I haven't seen. As I look back in the history of boots, and then there's this like huge nostalgia, you know, vintage boots. And I think I've looked at that, but I want to make something that's never been seen before. And so that's kind of, I guess, my hidden secret thing, that a couple more that are coming up that I'll once I know they're all working out okay, I'll share them. I guess that answers it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you told me on the phone the other day, I hope it's okay to share, that you have a goal of making 100 pairs of boots with inlay. How are you going on that goal so far?
They're kind of out of sequence right now. 15's almost done. 16 I'm not releasing yet, or releasing like it's all hidden or something, and then 18 I am 18 and 19. I kind of got those, I kind of have everything like a queue. If it's request that comes in or something, it might shift the order, but at least plan one, have one going, have one on lasted. And so that's kind of, you just got to start these processes. And, there's certain days it's like, okay, I can do that on this one. Or, oh, I don't want to hit that today. I don't want to last it today. Let's wait. And then it sounds so neurotic. And then I'll just do, something else on the other one and move it forward a little bit. So I guess does that answer?
Yeah. So you're working on 4 to 5 pairs of boots at any one time?
Like, I guess I'm going to say 3, I think that's what it's been like this year. I was doing like 3, or so. And then eventually they might change order a little bit, but I just numbered them. And I just thought, I've read this in one of these nonprofit books about, it sounds totally off topic, but it's, you have to have a tangible goal. You can't say, I plan to end hunger. It just sounds so big to wrap your mind around certain goals. Like if you're making a mission statement for like a nonprofit or something, it's going to have to be, or your business or whatever it is, it's got to be like kind of specific because it gives you like a place to reach for that you could actually see grasping. So to me, 100's just, I just started number them because I want them all numbered and, kind of catalog, I guess, detail oriented. And just that these are something I made and they're not perishable. So maybe who knows, one day they're on Antiques Roadshow. I don't know.
Nice.
I guess that's why 100. I said that because it sounds like you could achieve that. So that's kind of getting closer to 20% there, 80-20 rule. So
yeah, you're getting real close to 20% for sure. Or you're at a fifth of the way there now, which is a huge accomplishment already. Because a lot of people would say, I want to get 100 pairs done. And then by the time they're at their third pair or their third in anything, it doesn't have to be cowboy boots. They're like, man, this is crazy. Screw it. I'm going to figure out what else I can do 100 of. But you're already a fifth of the way there and have done it for long enough where it's got to be like sort of a habit and something that you need to accomplish now. Do you feel that way about it?
Yeah, I think there's like I never really have meant it when I've dramatically said I'm gonna quit. I don't really mean that. Like how sometimes you just say something, you're just like it's so hard, But because I think sometimes when you're like online with people, sometimes you're like, well, it all just worked out for me. It just came naturally. One thing, it was just here, and it just seemed like it all just kind of dovetailed in this effortless stream of perfect life. And you're like, no, it really wasn't like that. It's there's always many, focus. There's a lot of concentration involved, I think. But yeah, I kind of feel like now, especially like this year, I feel like, I tell my husband, yes, I just want to let you know I am in it to win it. I want it. I know you told me I couldn't, don't quit, and I'm like, no, there's something here. I do think there's something here in it for me. And I also feel very thankful to have had the opportunity to do it. And I think if you've ever had that opportunity to apprentice with something and it's something that you kind of can get behind, well, that would be part of passing it forward is that I learned this. And, for my mentor to share it with me, like you said before with the questions about passing it forward. Yeah, I do. I think that's such a great way to connect with people is through learning something else. And then you're never bored. There's always something else to learn or share with somebody. So I guess that answers the 100 boots goal, It's
yes,
tangible.
It does. So with so many boots to make, do you have a holy grail idea that you're looking forward to making at some point during this 100 inlay boot project?
So like I said, the order shifts a little bit. Sometimes it's not like a concrete list. It's like one slides in before another one. But my husband had an idea recently and he was always like, I can see you're thinking, like I see, how can you see I'm thinking? I'm on it. And we were talking about something and I said, yeah. Oh, I see it. Like, it's like, boom. It's like that, people are like
the click moment.
What's your, I basically see them done, like, I don't know. It's like a special power or something. I do think boots are kind of magical though, but I don't want to sound like, oh, I have this like premonition or I just know I should make it that way. No, it really is kind of like, they're just they're done in my head. I'm like, oh, that's it. And then I also look always at the leather I have left, like the piñatas. I was like, oh, that's it. I'll do it. I'll do it because I have that before I get more leather, I think there's a bunch of holy grails, or maybe at least a handful that I think will be the holy grails. Yeah. So, but they got to happen, so then I'll be, it's fun to share it. It really is fun to share this kind of work, I think, because you work alone, or I'm working alone. And I like that too. I like listening to something, music or, whatever, just different things. And then suddenly what's great about Boots is you're doing all this work solo, but then suddenly you reconnect with people and then you go out into the world and it's really cool. It's like you have this quiet time and then this rock star moment, and I think that's neat. That's a really fun balance for me, so.
Yeah, I think having several holy grails is awesome. I'd have to say that my favorites that you've made so far that would pretty much be a holy grail, as far as I'm concerned, is the Rosie the Riveter boots. That one is amazing. I really like that one. And then I also like the sort of quirky style of the alien boots that you did with the silver and the purple and the turquoise and the white. Like that was pretty cool. It was what's that alien place there in Nevada?
Roswell.
New Mexico, Roswell, New Mexico.
Go down to Roswell, New Mexico to do the I think
those are cool boots.
Thank you. Yeah. It's well, thank you for looking at them. I think that's really cool. So, but yeah, Roswell has the alien the light poles or the street lights. There's the alien parade and all of that stuff there. So, so it's sometimes not as often visited, but it's worth a visit if you're into the UFO thing. I think so. Yeah. It's it's kitschy. It's fun. It's I wonder, it's like the Art Bell stuff or something, I was listening to some of his stuff recently, Art Bell, I was working on set things. So I was like, oh, the paranormal, what's out there. So, yeah.
New Mexico is a good place for that.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's pretty much all the questions that I have. Let's go through another lightning round here. If anybody has any questions for Jes, please put it in the live chat right now. And we'll try to get to them as we finish up the interview here. Thank you, everyone, for joining so far. I got a couple questions here. 47 Solar asks, what type of scene, subject, or, sort of image do you like to put into boot inlay? Nature, people, something else? Like, what's your favorite thing to put into a boot and inlay?
I think the most challenging thing so far was probably the Rosie ones. People. I think people is cool, but I also realized, this other one is called Mid-Century Cocktail that I started, and I got the tops almost there, and I got to put the piping on and stuff. But and I have people in that one, but silhouetted, and it's like, oh yeah, I can cut that pretty tight there, a little profile, like the cameo thing, and I think I really like the flexibility of content. It's like you can go with almost anything in the world, and I really kind of enjoy a boot for the time I'm making it. And I notice sometimes, it's not like the number one boot that I would make for myself, but it's a boot that somebody will enjoy. And I think that's the thing about fashion too, is that it's very personalized. Like we said, the topics, the niches of things, somebody likes a certain look, somebody else doesn't like that look. So I like that I can relate to people on almost any level with boots. Like I really want to take it. It's not just, like I think about, line dancing. I had a British great aunt that did line dancing in kids in San Antonio. And I mean, it was kids, it wasn't cowboy boots, but it's like cowboy boots. I know were historically always Western kind of themes. And for me, I had some stuff that I want to do that's contemporary, but I also love history. I just think things that I think are surprising. And so when they hit me, I feel like, well, they hit me, like whatever idea, it's like, persist with it and make it happen and then get to the next one. So I enjoy a lot of it, all the different themes. So, but
great answer. Yes, that's so cool. Another question from 47 Solar. What are your favorite leathers to work with?
Let's see, probably because I like smooth leathers also because you're doing inlay.
Mhm.
Uh, there's like the kid skin, there's the kangaroo kind of for inlay. So because I'm always thinking probably mostly just of the smooth leathers. I mean, I've touched a lot of different leathers now, and I hadn't really thought about how many different kinds of leather there was on this planet. I just had no idea when I first jumped onto this boot thing. I just didn't realize, it was like the caimans, or is it I've seen it in Spanish, caiman sea, like little caimans, or like the crocodiles, or alligators, or ostriches. I think the ostrich is really nice, but I prefer, I guess, the smooth leather. So I'm not into I haven't done the full quill thing, but I think probably smooth leathers. And then I would like to try a tooled boot at some point. I have an idea for that. I'd like to try something with a tooled leather as well, but pretty much smooth calfskins, smooth leathers, kind of is, I guess, what I'm sticking with for right now, and that I enjoy working with. It's also, some leathers are really hard to last. There's certain leathers that are real challenge to work with, like stingray, and you'll break your needle on it, and it's like, whoa, this isn't as fun as I thought it was going to be. So I'm sticking like hoofed animals, more or less,
The
overall.
hoofed animals.
Yeah.
Yes. Love it. And I love it how almost every one of these interviews that I do, kangaroo always comes up in the conversation somewhere. It seems to be one of the favorites of all bootmakers everywhere.
Because it's good for the thin stuff. Yeah. That layering, like 4 layers of color together or something on a boot top, and it's strong, and that too. So yeah, that's I like these bright, vibrant colors to work with. I think that's great. So, but I'll do a muted one at some point. I have to, what will I do for like grays and browns? I have an idea for that. So we'll get to that. So yeah.
Nice. I got another question here from Jim Collins. Now, I know you do mainly custom boots with custom fit, but if you were to compare the size of a boot that you made to a off-the-shelf boot, what would the biggest size boot that you made be?
Right now, the biggest size I've done, because I've been focusing on the pointy. I said this, like a pointy boots, a lot of ladies' boots. I do have an idea to do like some men's, like, ropers and stuff, or pointy men's boots, but like, I'd say like a 10, actually, and a 10D is like, I think that's considered to be one of the most common men's sizes. And then like an 8 or an 8.5 is considered to be nowadays the most common, like, women's size. But every last company does them they're a little different, as far as like stock size. It's like clothing sizes too, right? There's sometimes like you can wear a small or a large, or these slight little variations. So I think it probably comes down to what the brand of the last is too, because there's certain companies that have certain lasts. And if you know what size you wear in that, you'll probably also wear it, across the board. So if okay, and Tony Lama or Justin or whatever, I wear that, and you can take a look at them with your foot tracing too, and see, because I think it's mostly that. It's mostly not just the size, but it's that particular last, because each one is shaped differently. I mean, there's just so many. I mean, I've gotten a bunch of lasts now. I have a pretty good selection on them. And as I said to my mentor too, I said, the muy pecudo. I hope I'm saying it right, because when you're talking English and then you kind of try to do your Spanish accent, you're like pecudo, like a pointy boot. And I know snip toes and square toes and round toes or French toes, and I'm just like, okay, I really like the pointy toe. I'm just gonna that's the one I'm focused on. Is like, you can't be a master of everything, but like women's pointy inlay, but I'll do a men's. I have a couple of men's I'd like to do. I did do a pair for a guy, a men's pair. So yeah, that gave me some good experience for sure. Yeah.
Nice. Speaking of pointy boots, here's the last question that we have in the live chat from Bloody Soup 74. Is there a certain style that's harder to work with? Square toe, pointed, something else? Does it matter?
I think I've said that I like the pointy boots differently because as opposed to the ropers, mainly because I like the symmetry of the point. But I mean, that could just be my personal preference. I mean, some people might say that a round toe is easier. I think the toes that I know a lot of people are into I think particularly men's boots. I see that square. I don't know if you tell me because you know the boot market too, like the square toes that I've seen a fair amount of those. I have not done a square toe. But I kind of just I like this classic point and also the snip toe. I like the look of the snip toe as well. But I think I think also for me, it's like get really good at one look, really good at that one way, and then branch out a little bit more. So I kind of am repetitive that way, but also infinitely possible. So I really just I think the pointy boot is like the classic, yeah, I'm here. I'm in my pointy boots and I just got out of the car. I got off my horse or whatever, and I'm here. I used to be the dorky kid, and now check me out now. It's kind of like that, that's what pointy boots are to me. So I'm going to get good at making them because I like them,
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Now, before we wrap things up here, I'm wondering if you could share with everybody how to go about ordering a pair of custom boots from you and what your process is during that ordering.
I would say to probably email is my favorite thing. I still very much like to, I'm notorious for long emails. I love communicating that way. Also, if there's visuals, it's very helpful if somebody has pictures of something that they can share it, because then especially if you're not in the same place, that you can see exactly what they're talking about. Because otherwise it's like, well, there's this pattern and it's like this and it's a little bit scalloped, but not a lot. It's a shallow scallop. It's a wide leg, or all those little details that if I can have just look at, the email, I would just say probably there. That would probably be the easiest way. I mean, I don't have a specific, at this point, I don't have a specific setup for it, but if you send me an email, that's probably the best way, or a direct message on Instagram. I do check that occasionally. So, and I post there, so you can get in touch with me if you're a DMer. Yep. That's what's funny. We abbreviate everything now, like merch. DM. So DM is like a verb. So you can do that too. And I'd be thrilled to talk to you. Yeah.
And I do have the Instagram linked up for everybody in the description of this video. What is your email for everybody? And then I'll also put that down there as well.
It's bootmakernm@gmail.com. And,
Great.
I did that on Instagram because I was sharing stuff about my teacher's shop and me. And it was kind of it tells you what it is and it tells you where you are, that it's New Mexico and it's about boots. And I just was like, all right, instead of saying I'm happy so-and-so out in the woods or whatever, it's like, well, what is that about? Just trying to be clear, that's what it's about. It's about boots. It's about New Mexico. So
I love it.
bootmakernm@gmail.com. Yeah, that's
perfect. Jes, thank you so much for taking this time to talk with me here on Ask the Bootmaker. I really enjoyed it. I know everybody watching really enjoyed it, and I hope that you got something out of it too. Spending an hour with me here today, I really appreciate it.
If you're still engaged, thank you. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you too for taking the time to talk to me about it. And I've sailed through it. I think I've passed. So that's good.
We did the thing and we did it great.
Yeah. I'll be seeing you again soon in the world out there on Instagram and stuff. Okay. And I'll check out your videos as well.
Awesome. You bet we'll be seeing each other. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Don't forget to check out Jes and follow her on Instagram as well. Peace, everybody. Have a good day.
Bye.
All right. It's over.